Aboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Samich Amud Aleph at the new Mishnah. Our Mishnah teaches a klal in regards to the Avodas Yom Kippurim. We've learned until now that the Kohen Gadol, in the very beginning, he takes his par and he makes vidui on his par. Then he goes and he makes the goral between the two he-goats, which one is designated as Azazel and the other one as Chatos. He comes back to his par and he makes a second vidui. Then he takes the ketares and he makes maloi choifnov, pouring it into the kaf. He takes the kaf in his left hand, the machta with the coals in his right hand, and he goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, whereby he then burns the incense, the ketares. Then he goes out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, he shechs his par. He then takes the dam of the par and he sprinkles it inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. He comes out and he shechs the sa'ir, the chatos, and he takes its blood and he sprinkles it in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Then he comes out, he takes the blood of the par and he sprinkles it towards the paroiches. Then he goes ahead and takes the blood of the seir, and he then also sprinkles it in front of the paroiches, whereby afterwards he mixes the two domim, and he then does the avodah in the inner mizbeach, first making applications on each corner, and then sprinkling the dam on the roof of that mizbeach. The Gemara now says this sequence is essential. Kol ha'maaseh Yom Kippur ma'amur ala seder. All of the Avodah Yom Kippurim is said on the Seder in its sequential order. Im hikti ma'aseh lechaver lo asa klum. And therefore, if he said, as he does one of the avodas before the other one, he hasn't done anything. The Gemara explained this. The Mishnah first gives us examples. Hiktim dam hasoyer ledam apar. If he proceeds with the dam of the soyer before the dam of the par, that means he sprinkles the dam of the soyer before sprinkling the dam of the par. Yachzor v'yazim midam asor la'acher dam apar. So the dam of the par is still fine, but since he preceded with the dam of the soyer, he has to sprinkle the dam of the soyer once again after the dam of the par. Im ad sheloi gomar es hamatonos shebifnim nishbach hadam. Let's say he was still in the middle of the sprinkling. After the third sprinkling, he then spilled the dam. What is then to be done? Says the Mishnah, Yavi dam acher v'yachzor betchilas mibifnim. He goes ahead and he then takes new dam. That means if it was par, the par's dam that he sprinkled 3 times and then spilled, he has to then check another par and then sprinkle from the beginning all 7 sprinkles. V'chein beheichal, and similarly when it comes to in the heichal. V'chein b'mizbeach hazov, and all equally true in the mizbeach hazov. Shekulon kapara b'fnei atzmon. All of these are its own kapara, and therefore, if he did the avodah in the heichal already, and let's say in the middle of his avodah of the inner mizbeach, so then he has to then go from the beginning of the inner mizbeach. What he did until then, the Kodesh HaKadoshim and the heichal was fine. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon oimrim. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, they argue and they say the following: when it comes to then the dam that was spilled in the middle of his hazois, let's say after 3 hazois it spilled. According to Tanakam, we just said he has to go from the beginning of those hazos and begin all 7. Whereas according to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, they say mimakom sheposak mishom hu matchil. From the place that he stopped, that's where he has to then continue. In other words, if he did 3 already, he only has to do another 4. The Gemara now brings a brayso in regards to this principle that we said in our Mishnah. Ton Rabbanan, Kol Maaseh Yom Kippurim Ha'omor ala Seder. All of the actions, meaning the avodah of Yom Kippurim performed by the Kohen Gadol, that was stated, it was stated on the Seder in sequential order. Im hiktim ma'aseh lechaver la'asa klum. And therefore, if he preceded one before the other, he didn't do anything. The Gemara now explains this. Rabbi Yehuda Mosai. Rabbi Yehuda explains these words. When are we talking about that if he does it in the wrong order, then it's essential enough to be ma'akev? He explains, B'dvarim hanasim b'bigdei lavon mibifnim. Those avodas that the Kohen Gadol does with the white vestments inside. Now there's a Machlokes how to explain these words b'vifnim. Rashi learns it means in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, lifnai v'vifnim. The Rambam and the Rabbeinu Avad Bartanura, they learn that it actually refers to the Heichal as well. But we'll go with Rashi, and Rashi says that if those avodas that were done in the Kodesh HaKadoshim with the white vestments, then if it was done out of order, that you did something outside before you did inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, then it will be ma'akev. Aval dvarim hanasim b'bigdei lavon mibachutz. But those things that are done even with the white vestments, but outside, according to Rashi, in the Heichal or in the Azara, im hiktim ma'aseh lechaveiro mashe osa osui. If he preceded one before the other, then what was done is done, and therefore doesn't ma'akev the avodah. In other words, he still has to do those things, but if it was done out of order, it's not going to be ma'akiv. That's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Nechemia Oimer, Rabbi Yechemia, he says, Ba'med devarim amurim, when is this so, that it's going to then be a requirement that it be done in sequential order? B'dvarim hanasim b'bigdei lavon bein mibifnim bein mibachutz. Anytime the Kohen Gadol performs avodah with the white vestments, whether it's inside or outside, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim or outside in the Heichal or the Azara, then it is going to be ma'akev. Aval b'dvarim hanasim b'bigdei zahav mibachutz masha osa osui. But if he does something out of order with the gold investments outside, then that's not going to be ma'akev if he does it out of order. The Gemara explains what is their machlokes. Omar Rabbi Yochanan ushneim mikro echad darshu. They both explain the same pasuk but differently, and based on that different explanation comes out their shita. It says in the pasuk, based on the pasuk that they explain, v'hoisa zois lachem lechukas oilam, and this shall be a statute for you, an eternal statute, lechaper al bnei Yisrael. Mikol chatoisom, achas b'shana. It shall be an atonement for all of Bnei Yisrael from their chatoisom once a year. Vayaz kasher tziva Hashem as Moshe, and this was commanded. Hashem commanded, and it was done like Hashem commanded Moshe. Says the Gemara again, Rabbi Yochanan explaining the two shittas, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. V'hoisol zois lachem lechukas oilam achas b'shana. The pasuk says, and this shall be a statute, an eternal statute for you. And the pasuk goes on to say, once a year. On top of Samech Amud Beis at the top. Rabbi Yehuda Zover makom shemiskaprim boi pam achas b'shana. Rabbi Yehuda emphasizes that it's referring to the chukah. Now the chukah, the eternal statute, that's referring to the makom, the place that it is performed once a year. And therefore, that place is only in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, whereby the white vestments that are then worn by the Kohen Gadol in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, if that's done out of a sequential order, that will be ma'akev. Rabbi Nechemia Sovar, Dvorim HaMiskaprim Bohem, Pam Achaz Bashona. He says, no, it doesn't refer to the makom, but rather the eternal statute refers to once a year, as all of the things that are done, all the dvarim, all the procedures that are done on Yom Kippurim with the white vestments. And therefore, that includes whether it's bifnim or bibachutz, whether it's included, whether it's in the Kodesh HaKadoshim or outside in the Heichal. Otu asked the Gemara on this explanation of the way we explain Rabbi Yochanan's the way they explain the psukim. Otu Rabbi Yehuda makoim ksiv. Is Rabbi Yehuda, when he explains the eternal statute as being the makoim, there's any indication in the pasuk that refers to only the makom inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Therefore, that can't be the explanation to explain Rabbi Yehuda. Ella hainu tameid Rabbi Yehuda. What is the reason Rabbi Yehuda? Ksiv zois v'ksiv achas. The pasuk that Rabbi Yochanan brought, it says zois and it says achas. This and it says once a year. Both are coming to exclude. Chad lemuute bigdei lavan mi bachutz, v'chad lemuute bigdei zov, and the other one to exclude the bigdei zov. In other words, you have the word zois that comes to exclude the avodah that's outside of the Kodesh Kadoshim, and then you have the word achas that comes to exclude anything that's without the bigdei lavan. So therefore, there's two exclusions, whereby it comes out to be only that avodah of bigdei lavan in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That's how Rabbi Yehuda learns. Rabbi Nechemia learns that the word zois and the word achas also has two exclusions. One, however, is to exclude that which is wearing the bigdei zahav, and therefore all avodas with a bigdei lavan, whether it's inside or outside, will be ma'akiv. It's not done in sequential order. The other word is coming to exclude those leftover blood that is poured on the base of the mizbeach. Those are not ma'akiv, and therefore, if they're not done in the sequential order, it will not be ma'akiv. The Gemara then points out Rabbi Yehuda responds to Rabbi Nechemia's shita, and he says, "I ma'akvei ma'akvei, v'i loy ma'akvei loy ma'akvei." He says, if it's going to be ma'akev, it's avoida, then it should be ma'akev everything, and therefore, since Rabbi Yehuda understands that the pouring of the shiare hadam on the base of the mizbeach is ma'akev, so therefore, then it should also be ma'akev the sequential order. V'iloi ma'akve lo ma'akve, and if not, not. So therefore, he doesn't understand. In other words, he's asking Rabbi Nechemia, why do you say that it comes to exclude shiare adam? Shiare adam is part of the avodah. If it's done out of sequential order, thereby, since it's done also with the white vestments, it should also then be ma'akev. That's Rabbi Yehuda's he'ara on Rabbi Nechemia. Kidetanya, like the Brisa says, V'chila kiper loy, where the pasuk says, V'kila mikaper es hakodesh. And when finishing the procedures of, here it's talking about after the Zrikas Hadam, both in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, as well as then in the Heichal, and as well as then also in the Heichal, but in the golden Mizbeach. After performing those Zrikos, it says, V'kila mechaper es hakodesh. When completing those avodos, then there'll be an atonement from the Kodesh. Im kiper kila, v'im lo kiper lo kila, di Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva understands that after the blood application that we just mentioned in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, in the Heichal by the Baharoiches, in the Heichal by the golden Mizbeach, when those are performed, that there'll be an atonement. Those are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Omar la Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda responds to Rabbi Akiva, Mipnei ma loy noimar im kila kaper, v'im loy kila loy kaper. Why doesn't it say, according to you, if it's finished, then it'll be an atonement. If it's not finished, then it will not be an atonement. According to what you're saying if the applications of the blood are performed, then there'll be an atonement. And if not, it's not an atonement. That's how it was stated, in that order. Yet the pasuk says, V'kila mechaper es hakodesh, says Rabbi Yehuda. And therefore Rabbi Yehuda implies that it has to also then come to include the shiare hadam. And therefore, when it says kila mechaper es hakodesh, it would also perform that. It would also come to include that. Ve'amrina on my beinayu. The Gemara points out there in Zvachim, what is then the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Akiva? What's their machlokes? Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Chad amar mashmos darshin ika benayu. One says that they are learning the same pasuk, but just in different order. In other words, there's no difference in terms of the understanding of the pasuk. It's just the ha'ar that Rabbi Yehuda has is why is it stated in this fashion. Chad omar mashmos darshin ika benai, which means that according to Rabbi Yehuda, it should state in a different order. It should say im kila kaper v'im lo kila lo kaper. But both Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehuda understand it to mean the same thing. When you're done with the applications of the blood, then there'll be an atonement. That's one explanation. Whereas the other says, they're coming to then say the difference being if the Shirai Hadam is a Ma'akev or not. According to Rabbi Akiva, it's not required to be in order. And therefore, since it's not, and therefore, since it's not anyways an essential part of the kapara, therefore it's not ma'akev. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, granted it is part of the kapara, the atonement, but Rabbi Yehuda's shita is that anything outside of the inside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim is not going to be ma'akev. Asked the Gemara, going back to Rabbi Yochanan said that machlokes is between the two, how they explained the pasuk that we quoted before. On Amud Aleph, the Gemara brought the pasuk v'haisa zois lochem lechukas olam achas b'shana. And the Gemara concluded that the machlokes is that Rabbi Yehuda says that, that Rabbi Nechemia says that one of those words is coming to exclude shiarim that are not ma'akev. So Gemara now comes back to that and says, Rabbi Yochanan, Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hachi, did Rabbi Yochanan indeed say this? That Rabbi Nechemia holds that the Shiar Adam is not Ma'akev? Ask the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Tana Rabbi Nechemia, Kedivra Omer Shirai Ma'akev. Behold, Rabbi Yochanan, he said that Rabbi Nechemia taught, like those that say that Shiarim are Ma'akev. So you see, it's a contradiction to what Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbi Nechemia. The Gemara says, indeed, kasha, it's a difficulty.